So I've just watched this horrendous sort of YouTube stock footage motivational video of a Donald Trump address or interview put out on YouTube, and yeah, maybe there is a little bit of bitterness like coiling within myself at this because it's always these sorts of videos that get hundreds of thousands or millions of views on YouTube, and yet my videos fade into obscurity, right? And don't get anywhere near the amount of views, and this is sort of a microcosm of an effect I think I've sort of managed to glean from observing popular culture and observing people like Donald Trump who do gain these huge platforms and spew their gabble out into the public sphere and so on. And he's talking about like not taking drugs and alcohol so far as pursuing a creative life is concerned, something, and he's like talking about talented children of friends of his who've taken drugs and alcohol and it's ruined their careers and whatnot. And I posted a comment on this video saying it has nothing to do with the drugs and the alcohol. The number of artists and writers and creative types who've taken alcohol throughout history is like that has been pretty much ubiquitous among them. I'd have said the amount of drug takers among creative types. We all know the list. I could endlessly list names of famous creative types who are big time drug users, and we all know that that's the truth, so it's completely ridiculous to say that. And this is something also annexed to something Jordan Peterson said about creativity, which really troubled me. And these are sort of thinkers on kind of the right now, I think, who the sort of like Jordan Peterson would say things like, oh, true creativity is very hard to come by. Like, no, that is not true at all. That's not true at all, by the way. Like, if anything, the real problem with creativity is not that it's hard to come by at all. In fact, the problem with it is it's incredibly easy to come by. And talent among creative types is far from being rare at all, is very abundant. And like, I grant you what is hard to come by, I think, in creative professions, and we all know this really, is I hate to say a term like success, because I've known a huge number of creative people who are very, very talented indeed. Songwriters, musicians, writers, poets, artists, all these sorts of people who they're doing like very, very good work. And then again, we all know of, on the flip side, creative people who produce work that gains mass appeal and that we regard as mediocre or inferior. And the real problem with creativity is that there's not enough, getting riches from creativity. That is hard to come by, I grant you. And if we're to equate success with being able to earn or being able to gain prosperity from creative pursuits, if we're gauging success in that way, rather than merely as having produced something worthy and of value, I grant you in that case that success from creativity is very hard to come by. Creativity itself, however, I believe is something we're all capable of. And furthermore, like, we're all capable of not merely being creative, but improving our creativity and improving upon what we're capable of producing in terms of a creative output. I sincerely believe that. So, creativity are not hard to come by. Success as a creative type, quite hard to come by. And when it comes to these people that Donald Trump knew, or the kids of his friends that he knew, or whatever it is, who are talented, I hate to say, it's like, yeah, the problem with creativity, even for those with talent, is that success, even if you're talented, is very hard to come. It doesn't mean that you should give up on the pursuit of that, though. I wouldn't have said. Like, why would you ever give up on something that makes you happy? I mean, in terms of what I do, I'm a writer, stand-up comic, journalist. I pursue like philosophical essays in my spare time, and do rogue scientific research, and maybe I'll cobble together a few books by the time I'm 35, like I want to, and get those out there somewhere, put them in the British Library and whatnot. And I don't know, like maybe I'll achieve some recognition for something I've done, possibly in a very small way prior to that point, or maybe after that point, if I choose to continue doing that, or if I choose to continue the things I'm doing, But the bare probability of prosperity and riches and wide recognition, um, either resulting from those riches or uh, the recognition from which I derive the riches themselves. Yeah, even if I am very successful, even if, yeah, I'm very talented, that is still unlikely. And we have like examples of all sorts of people throughout history who have been brilliant geniuses, and yet who never during their lifetimes achieved outward prosperity and wide recognition for their work. I mean, a notable example is, of course, Vincent van Gogh. He was painting in the north of France, and yeah, yeah, he never achieved any sort of outward notions of success. Everyone in sort of the small French rural communities that he was painting in thought he was very odd, was a complete oddball. He was just obsessively painting. No one thought his paintings were any good, particularly. And it was only until like many years after his death that he achieved any kind of measurable any measure of success per se, or any recognition. And the likes of Donald Trump say, like, "Oh, he's a failure." Like, "Oh, look at that hobo bum-looking guy wandering around in the north of France, paintings. He's just it's crap what he does. He's just he's a failure, clearly. A ne'er do well." I was like, you don't know. And like the Philistine likes of Donald Trump will like look at films like American Psycho, that they lose money at the box office. Oh, well, that's a failure then, isn't it? That's rubbish, clearly, because no one likes it, hence it's rubbish. But then, like, yeah, flop at the box office, failure. Many years later, cult success. Do you see? And yeah, the success does pick up for a lot of things which turn out to be brilliant, brilliant works of art and literature and film and whatever. And then later on, it gets recognition. And success on that level is a very hard thing to pin down. And it's very hard to accurately gauge, what success really is in that light when you've already written something off as a failure. And to gauge the levels of success associated with something, or to gauge the worth of something merely in terms of money and a price tag, you lead yourself into Philistinism, and you lead yourself into being totally ignorant of the values associated with given works of art. I mean, Emily Dickinson never published a poem in her lifetime. All her work was published posthumously. W.G. Sebald is another, even though he was a professor of literature at University of East Anglia, actually, where I went for a year. Yeah, had he published during his lifetime, he probably would have won the Nobel Prize in Literature, I imagine, or been a contender for big literary awards. And given his status as a literature professor, there was probably no reason why he couldn't have done, actually. But success is like, it is not gauged in money. It's gauged more in recognition, I grant you. And then again, I imagine you have all sorts of other people. Like, there's even anonymous poems like Tom of Bedlam's song, where we actually don't know the name of the person who wrote it, not their full name anyway. We assume they were probably called Tom, right? And maybe it was even written by someone who didn't know his surname, who was condemned to the Bethlehem Hospital, Bedlam mental asylum in London in the 17th century, I think, when it was written, or the 18th century. And yeah, is one of the greatest poems, a great poem, probably one of the greatest anonymously written poems. And there's loads of poems like that whose authors we don't know their names, and recognition has arisen for the piece of work itself. Even though I imagine the likes of Donald Trump, the Philistine that he is, probably isn't even aware of that poem's existence. So what the fuck does he know about anything? And look at me here, like in my little apartment with no outward trappings of success, drinking like Bukowski. Yeah, having my few little beers at the end of the day, after having written probably my 2,000 words for today, I think. Roughly, I haven't done any poetry today, but I've done a fair bit of prose writing. Now this. John Clare, I don't think he really gained any recognition to any great extent during his lifetime. Now he's recognised as one of the English language's greatest poets. And I think some of his better poems were actually written during the declining days of his career, where he was in a psychiatric hospital. And he was putting his poetry together in little self-published pamphlets of poetry, flogging them on the street, working menial jobs because he's from the British working class at the time, the rural working class of the time. We can't all be Byron, can we? And grow up in rich trappings. Oh, and furthermore, we can't all be like Hollywood producer, rich kids or directors' kids from Hollywood, from LA, who they sort of, off the back of their parents' success and connections, or their parents' money and connections, I should say, invest their time and energy into producing Drek, like the Emoji Movie or the Angry Birds movie. And it's like, it was astounding at the box office. It's a success. It's brilliant. No, not so much. And again, crap that gets put out there, so it offends Marvel Cinematic Universe fans here, as they the Avengers series was all crap. No, lots of Marvel films are really good. Okay, Deadpool is really good, Thor is really good. Iron Man, yeah, is really good. I think it went on for a bit too long. The Avengers is no, I don't like this. You're just milking it now. All right, this is crap. And what else was really good? Those Marvel movies are really good. I'm not going to go at Marvel in general, but the Avengers, this is fucking boring, and that is my opinion on it. So yeah, I mean, it was a huge box office grossing thing. So everyone can be tricked into fucking paying the ticket price for it. And what will happen to it? I imagine it'll fade into obscurity. I certainly hope it will. It will. It's not a landmark cultural achievement. It's back in the 50s and 60s, there was the big age of westerns and war movies in Hollywood. And they were milking that genre back then. And we only remember the best of the best. The Good, the Bad, and the Uglies, and the 12 Angry Men and whatnot. And the Clint Eastwood ones and the John Waynes. But the good John Waynes ones, not most of them probably. It's all then the B-movie cowboy movies that are just disappeared entirely. Sorry, and those of them may have done incredibly well at the time and been big money spinners at the time. But we remember the really good stuff in history. So you might be out there struggling through your creative practice, being little Vincent van Gogh. It's like, you keep going, even if no one thinks you're anything now. That anything you do is worthy of any recognition now. It might be after you're dead. It might be at the very end of your career. You know, George Orwell lived a pretty ropey, fairly austere, penniless existence. I think really until Animal Farm got published, and then he sort of solidified his career with well, like 1984, I think. What are your thoughts on the Depp versus Heard trial? Is that exactly relevant to what this video is talking about? Donnie Jenkins. My thoughts on it is I think Amber Heard is clearly lying. She has a long history of lies. She's been under investigation since 2015 by the FBI and the Australian authorities for forging quarantine documents for her dogs and for perjuring herself back then. I think she's rather clearly perjuring herself. I think this incident with her bringing up Kate Moss in court was probably the point at which she realised that her lies have been exposed completely. Her lies are somewhat ridiculous given the content of them. The fact that she's accusing Johnny Depp of very serious sexual assaults by, say, on this camping holiday in Hicksville, and no one suspected that anything was off about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp at the time, and that the authorities weren't informed back then, which they probably would have been if that had happened. She said something ridiculous also about Depp sticking a bottle into her, and she wasn't sure if it was broken or not. Like, someone sticks a bottle into any orifice of your body and you're uncertain whether or not it's broken, I think you're clearly lying about the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, what are my thoughts on it? Johnny Depp, drug addled, sure, possibly. And is he like a saint or a really amazingly decent guy? I don't know, but from the recordings I've heard of him trying to pacify his wife, Amber Heard, you know, just from looking at the evidence or from seeing what evidence there is out there, yeah, it does seem like Johnny Depp is frankly a bit more, that has a bit more moral turpitude than she does, and is operating from a slightly more level playing field in spite of his alcohol and cocaine, not necessarily habits, but the fact that he takes alcohol and cocaine regularly and weed. He seems a bit more balanced, stable, and a bit more, and by the way, under an enormous amount of stress, notwithstanding those facts. And when does his career seem to have slightly started on the descent? As soon as he met Amber Heard, as soon as he started going out with her, that's when everything went into decline for Johnny Depp, it would seem. But hey, yeah. My thoughts on the trial wasn't my thoughts on the outcome of the trial. I certainly hope it is a victory for Johnny Depp. I think he deserves that. And yeah, I think most people out there sort of have come to the conclusion now that Amber Heard seems to be really rather a volatile and duplicitous, deceptive person, and that seems to be the impression I think that most people are getting out of this, other than a few journalists at publications like The Guardian and Vice and whatnot, and Vice used to be good, frankly, right? Now it's getting less good because of its certain stances on certain things, such as this. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Bye bye, and I love you lots, and I will see you soon. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that stuff, so I can beat Donald Trump motivational crap videos in the YouTube algorithm. That would be lovely. Thank you. Bye. Love you lots.